I couldn't talk to her. She rarely came into my dreams. I played a good game, spying on her through the library books, trying to pierce her with my looks. She never knew in those early days, or if she did, she had clever ways. She was so matter-of-fact and cool, perched on her lucky library stool. Her fingers ran like scented breath, popping cards into cardboard sheaths. Men smiled, and her red lips parted. Her eyes sang, and the pain started all over again. I couldn't stop the poison dripping in drop by drop. I watched her, loved her, longed to share with bolder men the smell of her hair, to be the bud of her gentle laughter. But I knew what the other men were after, and I, locked out like the printed word, dumb, and being dumb, absurd, couldn't control the serpent squirming in the ashes of my passions burning. Hatred fed on denied desire, but hatred in turn blew a hotter fire. No one met her after work. I knew. I was there to look. I caught her bus, with her dismounted. No man spoke to her who counted. She lived simply with her aged mother, who fed off her, a mutual bother. No man wormed his way indoors. Her light went on upstairs. I sat in an opposite tree, seeing what there was to see, which wasn't much. She pulled the curtains quickly as a rule. But some light crept into the dark and found me spellbound in the park. I stayed till she went to bed. A kind of unknown Galahad. In the morning, I was back in place till she left for work at a lilting pace. Oh, after a week, she came to know I was there. She began to go strange ways to the bus stop. I was happy to let her. Would try guessing which route she'd take. I kept well back for her sake. One morning, cleverly, she waited round a corner. Said she hated being followed by a stranger, her voice climbing close to anger. My tongue tied in 1,000 knots. I stood rooted to the spot. Why was I trailing her like this? Her lips cried out for a kiss. Stop it, or she'd call the police. Oh, I'd been growing there 1,000 years. I counted and envied. 10 tears coming from her eyes, catching the sun. Oh, if I could have reached out and touched just one. I was a gnarled oak struck by lightning. She told me I was ugly, frightening, turned and ran. I took in the sounds of her footsteps, kissing the ground. My body was seized by a spasm. My heart plunged into a chasm, and sweat, like a tidal wave, flooded my love's grave. I kept away for 10 days. Time to plan new ways of cradling a love newborn. I would write my way through her scorn, a letter by the evening post, a handful of words at most, no name, but she knew who no longer stood in the bus queue. Love is a dream that cannot speak, I wrote. Or better, every week a flower wilts that needs your tears. Or one of the later efforts, fears that feed on love breed the only happiness worth having. To me, that was the best. For my pains, though, she sent the law. Writing threatening letters was what he saw. Leave the girl alone. Stop writing. Unless I wanted to get mixed up in a court case. I didn't ask him how he knew me. It was his brutal tone that threw me. Love letters dismissed as so much dirt. He had them in his hands. That hurt me down to my love's quick. I had to go and see her at her work. Another scene. The porters threw me out. Sick with love all day, I hang about across the road in trees. She went home with 2 men hanging tightly on her arm. When she went in, they stayed outside, complaining to each other, but wide-eyed. I looked forlornly at the chinks of light that crept through the curtains all that night. In the cold dawn, with the police still there, I would have given my life for a touch of her hair. She didn't leave that morning or the next. A doctor called twice. I couldn't think of a pretext for getting in the house. My love was hopeless. I was the villain of her illness. I went away in a delirium. Solutions came but wouldn't come. I travelled, wandered, slept in ditches, was conscious of myself only in snatches. Was it months I spent in such a trance? My father died amongst elephants. I was a shark in seas of blood, and bodies floated overhead. My sisters, aunts, and cousins plagued me in their dozens. Blood-red sunsets haunted me, and images of butchery. My head turned up in a heap of junk. Can a butterfly soar through a tree trunk? What is a bottle when the drink is gone? Should trees reach upward when there is no sun? tracks lead up to a frozen door. Who went? Who came? Who cares anymore? Men who struggled to the mountain crest are no more than nipples on a woman's breast.